Listen to me very carefully. You don't live here, do you? You're just a babysitter. Have you been upstairs in the last 5 minutes?
Why?
I don't think you're alone in this house. Someone's upstairs. I've seen them moving around through the windows. You should get out of there. Now.
Everything is ready, my darling. Do not be afraid. Soon we'll be together again.
This sandwich tastes as dry as hell.
Hello and welcome to Hello, This is the Doom Show. I am a stranger calling back from my pal Simon, but also I'm Richard. Hi, Simon.
You check the children on 420 blazing it.
Folks, of course, after our infamous Idle Hands episode, what better way to return to talking to Simon than with some 420 blazing?
Yeah, man.
Of course, by the time this episode comes out, it'll be like a month from now, but whatever. Oh my gosh. Folks, we're going to talk about When a Stranger Calls Back from 1993. For those of you who were born after 1993, I don't know what to say to you. Welcome to the world. You're getting old, whoever you are. Real quick, before we jump into this film, which we're going to spoil, by the way, what is your feelings about the first When a Stranger smokes that diggity dank? I almost couldn't say it.
Slightly frustratingly, as I was saying to you yesterday, I had intended to watch everything related to this franchise before recording, and then I couldn't find the fucking disc for the OG. It really could be anywhere, and I'm just going to throw this out here as kind of a PSA to anybody who might be in danger of sliding down this slope like I've done. If you're putting your discs in the wrong case, stop it, please, before it gets out of control, because I've been doing this for years and it's beyond out of control. And now God. Sometimes I just can't find stuff at all. Anyway, and that is as much when I re-listen to this to remind me to mend my ways. It didn't matter because I'm fairly well familiar with it. I'd seen it a couple of times. I rewatched it last year, I think the day after I watched this for the first time. And I really like it. I kind of like how I know people complain about how it is weirdly structured, and you have the very famous opening, and then it goes off into being one of those that were kind of, I suppose, before the slasher really, got kind of its more typical identity. You'd have those like character study ones of like Nightmares in a Damaged Brain and got a mix in a bit, and Maniac and all that, and Christmas Evil, where it would be more like a Taxi Driver sort of thing of following this either somebody's just a bit of a sad sack loser or complete psychopath. And you could, and especially now, you could kind of debate the quote sort of ethics of doing that, now, like there's a load of true crime stuff, and there are all these think pieces when the Dharma thing came out saying, should we really be doing this, and providing all this space to this person and empathizing with them, should we not be focusing on the victim more? But I get that, but I don't know, I find those films kind of like really interesting, and it's great, obviously, just on an acting level, great material for actors to play with. That guy who I didn't realize, I think there's a dedication at the end of the sequel to somebody, and I was like spacing, thinking, who is that? I think it is, I have to look it up now. I'm totally forgetting his name, sorry. I want to say it's Tony somebody.
I can't remember his name either.
I'm gonna look it up. Tony Beckley, that's it.
Tony
He's-
Beckley, yeah.
He's great in it. He's like so intense. Even,
man.
like, is it the first time you see him in that scene in the bar where he ends up, I think he's trying to talk to, is it Return You're Older? Is that, I think that's who he's speaking to, and then he ends up getting the shit beaten out of him by that guy. Just such kind of an intense scene, and then you have all that stuff, and you have all the weird stuff with Charles Durning and his buddy. He's hired by the Doctor to. I'm forgetting now whether he's hired just to find him or he is actually hired to kill him, because then it becomes.
He's literally hired to kill him.
I thought so, yeah. And he's talking how he's going to do it with some like long, I forget now, like some kind of long needle or something in the back of the neck, I think was it?
Yeah, like a stiletto with poison on it or something.
Yeah, that's it.
Crazy.
So you have all that, and then it's bookended by, I suppose, a kind of reprise kind of the Stranger Calling Back, but not really. It's a generation thing now that Carol Kane's kids are getting babysat. I really like it, but do I love it? Maybe, I don't know.
I love it. As a kid, it really impressed me, like the whole tangential nature of the entire rest of the film. Like, it's just so weird. And the structure of this movie is weird too, but I think they're better at how they structure it. But I always remember hearing from people they didn't like the old movie. Oh, the first 15 minutes are great and the rest is bullshit. I'm like, oh, no, that doesn't sit right with me. That never sat right with me. I've always loved that movie.
Mm-hmm.
This movie, the When a Stranger Calls Back, I mean, it's just like such an unusual thing, which we will get into.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about that remake? Now, you just saw the remake for the first time, like this week, maybe?
Yeah, a couple of days ago.
Nice.
Yeah, no, I really liked it. Maybe I looked at again. You always feel a bit hesitant of sometimes saying that on the first viewing. I was a bit. I think when I was watching the opening credits, and because whatever I'd watched, I'd rewatched the remake, sorry, and we'll come to the whole aspect ratio confusion debacle thing. But because that is very, the camera's typically very like locked down and stuff, and it's When a Stranger Calls Back, it's kind of more old school sort of way of filming things, and you come to flash forward to 2006 and everything is very, and I don't think I'd watched a film from that era for a while, so it's kind of a bit jarring, especially the editing style. It's very like, the more I think about it in retrospect, it works really well because it's surrounding a fun fair, like whooshing around, and then in the background, there's obviously somebody being stalked and killed. But we just kind of get a silhouette and kind of a scream. And it's certainly very stylish. I mean, it's kind of almost directed and edited within an inch of its life, that film. And I don't mean that in a bad way necessarily. I could see how it might, especially once it kind of settles into a groove, everything is just kind of spot on, really. But
it was tailored for the audiences of the time.
Oh, totally.
Trying to appeal to the young people.
And I did have to look up it yesterday, and I've forgotten now, what were some of the movies that came out that year, just to sort of really remind me what the sort of style was back then. But just on its own merits, really, really enjoyed it, maybe loved it. That house setting is just one of the most unreal locations I've seen in any movie of this kind. I don't know what kind of doctor that guy is, but he's like... I mean, my word, that house is crazy.
Brain surgeon or cardiovascular.
Oh yeah, like super surgeon. Something like super high beyond like high level. But just the atmosphere, that lens with they have that great thing of where people walk into the rooms and the lights automatically come on. All the like, it's almost like, and I know you love this sort of thing, you kind of swimming pool at night sort of ambience, all the sort of dappled lighting coming off the pools. That's and my jam. All the rippling on the walls and stuff. It just looks beautiful. The
other thing that we could talk about real quick too is the short film that inspired all this, which I had never seen before until last night.
Oh, really? Right.
I'd never seen that and I was watching that last night, and I was thinking about the poor girl, the actress that's in that, and her total miscasting.
Yeah.
She's not bad in the original short. She's just so miscast, and she gets smoked by Carol Kane, dude. Like, just completely left in the dust. Oh my God.
It was a good run up, I suppose, kind of trial run, because when they had to do the year before, yeah.
But I love the J&B. I love how everything's a freaking giallo. It's so funny.
And what did you think of the music in it? It was kind of interesting. Do you remember?
Did I remember the music? I think it was a little... Was it kooky?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, there was
Yeah.
maybe some synth poop in there as well.
Yes. We all need a little bit of that. I'd never wipe that off my shoes. For some reason, while I have IMDb open, When a Stranger Calls Back, they're playing a documentary on Disney Plus about the Bon Jovi story. So I'm very confused
Yeah,
as to what's happening here.
I don't just throw some random stuff at you that now when you go on there.
So yes, When a Stranger Calls Back, 1993. This was directed by Fred Walton, who directed the original, as well as I did a remake of I Saw What You Did in 1988.
Yeah, I was reading about that. I don't think I've seen the original, but that was really, somebody was rating that like more than the original.
Nice. He did something called The Stepford Husbands and a movie called The Rosary Murders, which I really want to see now.
Yeah, me too.
With good old Donald Sutherland and Charles Durning again. Oh my God.
It's an episode of, and I just think, just from obviously what just how good he is at suspense, I'd really like to see the episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents he did as well, the 80s version.
I wonder, an unlocked window. Interesting. Very curious about that as well. I keep closing my windows here, bro. I'm not helping myself. This was written by Fred Walton and Steve Feck, or Fecky. He wrote the original. We got a lot of returning crew from the original When a Stranger Calls. He also wrote an episode of Scarecrow and Mrs. King, which is a show that Leah and I enjoy very much. But he frickin' wrote Poltergeist 3.
Oh, really? Right.
And then he totally went off the rails the same year and wrote Mac and Me, which I have never seen, but it is one of those infamous bad movies. I can't believe it has a 3.4. That's got to be too high.
I nearly watched that recently, actually, so I'm just so morbidly curious about it after I watched Along Similar Lines. Is it called Extraterrestrial Visitors, that E.T. knockoff by the guy in Pieces?
Yeah. Jeffrey and I have recorded an episode about good old pod people, aka ET2.
Brilliant.
I can't wait. Simon and I were talking about like movies we'd potentially do an audio commentary for, and I think Mac and Me might be the one.
Who is that guy? Is it Paul Rudd, who whenever he goes on a certain talk show now, he's meant to be promoting something and he'll just show the clip from Mac and Me with there's a kid in a wheelchair going off a cliff or something. Just with no context. And he does it every time he goes on.
God bless him. God bless him. Folks, if you haven't seen Travel Man with Richard Ayoade, I guarantee you will fall in love with the show, the episode with Paul Rudd and Richard Ayoade hanging out and traveling and eating salted licorice. Paul Rudd's reaction to eating salted licorice. It's amazing. But anyway, let's see what else we got here. I'm going to go ahead and play the trailer. This has a wonderful trailer that I found. It's a minute of pure perfection. Here's the trailer.
She was alone in the house with the children.
Hello?
When the phone went dead,
Who is it?
a stranger stepped out of the dark, and a reign of terror begins.
He was inside the house with her.
He is out there somewhere. He will go after someone else.
I'm sorry, sir. There seems to be some problems.
Jill. I'm here, Jill.
Where are you?
We're all alone now, Jill.
Carol Kane, Charles Durning. When a Stranger Calls Back.
Now, I looked up the VHS tape. Folks, I love reading the VHS descriptions, but I draw the line when the author of frickin' War and Peace shows up to write some copy on the back of a VHS, so I'm not reading that shit. Here's the IMDb single sentence. Oh, I'm sorry, I lied. It's 1 sentence and a half. A young babysitter all alone in the house with 2 children asleep above is bothered by a stranger. Unfortunately, the phone is dead. I love it. Who needs more than that? I don't. Carol Kane. Carol Kane is the killer. Spoilers. So yeah, let's talk about some of these beautiful characters. Speaking of Carol Kane, this movie renewed my crush on her. Holy shit. I want to go down a Kane hole and watch as much Carol Kane as I can now. She is so great. I love how she's 1/5 the size of a normal person. Carol pocket-sized Kane. I love her.
Wait a minute. Oh, I think my mind has just been blown here. I'm going to have to scroll.
Oh, tell me more.
Homies to find out, though, just to confirm this. Okay, so under Addams Family Values, speaking of sequels, from the same year as this, funnily enough, she's listed as Granny. Now,
she plays the grandma.
Because I've not seen that a long time. Is that the same grandma as in, like, the original?
Well, it's the same character, but she was not the grandma in the first Addams Family movie.
Got you. Right.
Yeah. Dude. When was the last time you saw Addams Family Values?
I think it was probably because it's a kind of a Thanksgiving movie. I think I did watch it one year around that time.
You got to watch it every year. It's awesome. I have never in my life been more attracted to anyone other than my wife than I am of frickin' I almost said Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She's not in that. Joan Cusack as the villain.
Right.
The villainess. Debbie. She's so hot in that movie. Like, Joan Cusack is always cute, but she's never been, like, hot before or since that movie. She brought so much sexiness to that. That's like...
Miss Debbie! Deborah!
Yeah, Carol Kane. Totally Granny in that. But yeah, I mean, Carol Kane, dude, 173 or 175 credits. What?
Sorry, I'm just, again, it's all connecting. You speaking of Seinfeld, she was in an episode of Seinfeld in 1994.
Of course she was. She's the bass player for the song. Bunka, bunk, 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 bunk.
The marine biologist, that is a really good one. I can't remember who she plays in it.
We got Charles Durning. Oh yes, Carol Kane plays Jill Johnson, reprising her role from the first movie. She's now a total badass.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about in a bit. Charles Durning is returning as John Clifford, the former detective. Charles Durning, bless his heart, he looks like I feel in this movie. I love him so much. If you haven't seen him steal the entire movie from Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds in The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, you have to watch The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. Like, everyone's just standing there while he does his thing, and everyone's like, God, we're not as good as him. Holy shit.
Brilliant.
What do we do? I love Charles Durning, and he's one of those people that I've never heard anyone that's worked with him not gush about him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Jill Schoelen as Julia Jens. Jill Schoelen, this is, I think, the end of her run in horror.
Yeah, I think you're right. She did. Forget when she
was tearing
retired.
it up.
She's got some more. Oh, there was a big gap. Yeah, she did retire, I think, maybe early 2000s. But there is something listed for a TV series 2021. She has something upcoming, Mr. Christmas.
Yeah, Mr. Christmas.
But it's
no
surprising.
Idea what that is.
She, you'd think she had more credits. There's only like 34 listed on here. But yeah, during that kind of run, she seemed like she was kind of in everything.
Yeah, man. The freaking Popcorn. I just saw her in Phantom of the Opera from 89 last night. Oh my God. She's so good in that. Curse 2, The Bite is one of those movies I've been dying to see because it's got like an Italian crew, but they kill so many animals.
Yeah.
I was watching the trailer. They kill like hundreds of snakes. I hope they're all fake, but I don't think they were, Simon.
No, I've seen it once a long time ago. I can't really remember. It was that, aside, which is obviously regrettable to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I remember it kind of been interesting and having some, really gnarly Screaming Mad George effects in it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But yeah, kind of intrigued, although maybe a little scared to rewatch it.
She was an episode of Murder, She Wrote, which, always gotta go back to Murder, She Wrote. A movie that I think, did you and I discuss maybe covering Cutting Class?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think, folks, stay tuned for that one. I would love to talk about Cutting Class with you. That'd be great. And of course, a movie that I like, but I've never loved, called The Stepfather.
Yeah, again, if I'd been more organised, I would like to rewatch it before this. I've seen it once.
Yeah.
We watched it, when was it? I'm guessing it was probably part of, we did kind of a whole module or what have you on horror when I did my film degree, and that was one of the ones in there. And yeah, I remember it being very good.
Nice. And of course, way back in 85, she was in Chiller.
Still need to
which
see
is same, yeah. So Wes Craven did a movie called Chiller in 1985. It was, I believe, a TV movie, and it's on like every single cheap 6 movies on a DVD compilation for horror, and the copies always look so shitty that I just never bothered. Paul Sorvino and Jill Schoelen in Chiller. One of these days, maybe a good copy's out there. I just haven't found it yet. But yeah, she's great as babysitter Julia turned rough and rugged mullet wearer. Man, her haircut goes from super cute to holy shit, what happened to you?
I mean, yeah, there's a sign of being traumatized. Growing a mullet is probably
Party in the front, party in the back, party on the sides, party all over the place with your hideous fucking haircut. I love it. I do love how recently mullets have come back, and it's like, guys, come on. Next up, we got Gene Lithgow, who plays William Landis. He is our villain. He is our stranger this time, and he is the strangest stranger.
Oh man,
boy, this guy is weird. And folks, don't do blackface. Just don't do it. But he wasn't trying to be a fake black person. No. He was trying to become darkness. I like this guy. He has a Lithgow name, but I don't believe it's related to America's Treasure, John Lithgow.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of.
No, but he's in a lot of TV stuff, just popping up in episodes. I don't think his career never really took off so much. Maybe he's a stage guy or something like that, but he is really, really weird in this, and awesome. So we'll get to that when we get to that. So folks, like I said, if you're going to see this movie, spoiler free, do it. You will enjoy it, I believe.
Yeah, I hope so.
But we're going to talk about the plot. First thing you need to know about Julia, the babysitter, is she's a fucking liar. What a liar. So we get the spooky vibes immediately. I believe this movie, by all appearances, seems to take place in fall. It's nighttime. Everything's wet and soaked, and all the dead leaves are on the ground. And the spooky vibe is the first frame of the movie. Like this opening sequence, they wanted to make it scarier than the first movie, and I think they succeeded. Yeah.
It only really struck me this second, third viewing overall, but second rewatch recently. And it's kind of obvious, and I suppose you get this in any film at this time, the sort of voyeuristic. I know people, especially academics, who start kind of going, this is where they start talking about the, quote, male gaze and everything.
Right.
Where she's arriving. But yeah, it is really, maybe the very first shot aside where it's more like a kind of omniscient camera or whatever, just sort of floating around. But then after that, especially when you rewatch it, it's like, there's definitely somebody lurking about here.
See, folks, we need more male gaze, Gays, and less male gaze, Gaze. That's all I'm saying. So Julia's brother drops her off so she can sit on babies. I believe that's how you say that.
Yeah. And
she does the one thing that Carol Kane should have done. She checks on the children first thing.
Yeah.
Don't even need the phone call to remind her. As she's having her fun time, hanging out at the house, the knock at the door comes. And there's a man on the other side. Man claims that his car is broken down and he wants her to call the auto club. So she goes to be good and call the auto club, but the phone isn't working. I don't know what's going through her mind here. Maybe she doesn't want this person to know that she couldn't call the police.
Yeah.
But she full on just lies.
Yeah, I thought about this quite a bit. And I think you're right. It's like she definitely doesn't want him to know that she's without, well, you just said it, able to call the police or whatever, and the phone's dead. But I mean, she just... It's that line, isn't it? What a tangled web we weave when we choose to deceive and all that. She just straight away starts making things harder for herself and us all more uncomfortable, sort of by proxy, just watching this just kind of escalate because she's done this. I suppose you had to make kind of a split-second judgment call, but yeah, couldn't she just have said, well, I just couldn't get through, you know,
I don't mean to correct you, but the saying is, what a web we weave when we weave and weave and weave and weave. So just remember that next time. But little things start happening that are really subtle that I love. And they of course, keep building where she totally turned off the burner for she's going to make some tea. And she totally turns off the burner.
I didn't notice that.
And then when she, hears the knocking, she turns it off and then leaves. And then all of a sudden, what sound does she hear? She hears the pot boiling. So that was the first thing. And then the piece of paper where she wrote down all that guy's information magically disappears. And it just keeps escalating. And then, sure enough, he's like telling her, like, Julia, I'm going to kill you. And she never said her name. He had stolen the note off of the fridge from the parents that said, Julia, here's where we'll be. So that was another thing, that the note had disappeared. But yeah, this whole sequence is so good, culminating in our stranger attacking her, or coming after her. What does he look like when we finally see him? Does it strike you as something familiar?
Vaguely, yes.
His look?
Yeah, I can't quite place it, and I get a bit thrown with when we do see him later because, he's kind of got the bottom half of his face covered. But I was I keep saying to myself, even again on this like third watch, of like, is this a different actor, or is it just how he's like made up, or how he's got his gaze fixed, or whatever? But no, I don't know. What is it reminding you?
I'm getting. Well, for the first thing I get is the way his mouth is covered reminds me of the OG Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, whereas his face is covered. And I think that might be what it's referencing, the way his mouth is covered. Yeah. I was thinking London After Midnight, too.
Right.
But I think I'm just conflating the two. Hey there, folks. I'm just cutting in real quick. I'm actually thinking of The Man Who Laughs, not London After Midnight. Bye. Yeah, it's definitely Lon Chaney, Phantom. Yeah, there's the shots where he has the bottom half of his face covered.
Another great little, speaking of it, these little, especially things which you don't ever really going to get an answer to, of like how they've happened or why they've happened, where, forget if it's the first time she opens the door, where there's the empty coat just left outside.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. So yeah, and then the cops rescue her and everything. Now this time the kids are missing. The kids have not been killed. The only unrealistic thing that happens in this whole opening sequence, and I hate to call out movie mistakes and be like, excuse me, Mr. Director, you made a boo-boo. She turns off MTV so that she can study. Let me tell you, folks, I was a teenager once. May not have been a babysitter, I was hotter than Joel Sholin as a kid. Just saying. But I would never... First of all, I would never study. Second of all, I would never turn off MTV ever, much less to study. Man, now I just want to watch Idle Hands.
You'd be like the kid in Nightmare on Elm Street 4 where you've fallen asleep on your waterbed with it still playing.
Anyway, sorry.
I want my MTV.
So after 5 years of mullet growth, our pal Julia the babysitter is now Julia the college sitter. And she has a whole life that she's developed, very private. She doesn't seem to have any friends. She's obviously very haunted by what happened to her. Apparently, we'll find out, she had a lot of psychological issues and had to get a lot of therapy and psychiatric treatment to deal with her trauma. Sure enough, the little things have been happening again to her apartment. And she finds the pajamas, the pajamas of the little boy that she'd been watching just hanging up in her closet. She freaks out and runs to the cops, which are zero help. Never believe the victim, everybody. Come on.
Yeah, it's crazy watching this film now, isn't it? Just like how insanely timely it seems to be.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Like, they're not even willing to go to her apartment and look. So they call in the college... like a college therapist, college crisis person. And sure enough, it is our friend and yours, Jill Johnson. In fact, it was really funny. they say not to call in, they don't call in Johnson, and the cops all roll their eyes like, oh, that crazy woman. And sure enough, they get her anyway. And little tiny Carol Kane is now a hulking 6'5" woman. No, I cannot. I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry. I'm not making fun of short people. I just love how little she is. She's such a cutie. I mean, in heels, she's taller than Charles Durning, so come on. It's not that difficult to be tall. Just work on it. What was I talking about? So, Simon, tell me about her entrance. Tell me about what is up with Carol Kane here.
Yeah, she comes in. I mean, she's probably had to deal with this kind of bullshit before, I suppose. I'm guessing, the cops are just, they're all just like slump back and blasé, and she just kind of strides in, this with like total purpose, completely ready to just listen, basically, and take it seriously. And what's funny to me about the cop thing, despite the fact they're not taking it seriously, is how many cops they've got sat around doing essentially fuck all. Probably just thinking, I don't know, the break room is full or whatever, because none of us do any work, so we'll just hang out in here and listen to this hysterical woman.
The morning's donuts are gone.
Exactly. But she comes in and, she's already a short lady and just makes herself kind of even smaller, practically, like nearly kneels down in front of her. And I'm going to get confused. This is a little moment that makes me laugh, just because the name kind of confusion. Julia, I'm Jill, to Jill. You know what I mean? But, she just straight away is like, it's that little kind of subconscious bit of body language thing of just like, I'm ready to listen and,
It's in the way that Jill Schoelen is so good in this. She's so vulnerable when she's relating the small things that have been changing. Someone's clearly in her life, in her apartment, doing something. It's chilling and like gives me the creeps just hearing her talk about what's happening to her.
Yeah, totally. And not getting ahead too much. I mean, I think this is one of these reasons this film kind of resonates with me because, having, I suppose, it's never been diagnosed, but kind of a minor form of, it does seem to, I have to can't stress enough, kind of a minor form of PTSD, because obviously there are kind of levels of these things.
Right.
But I did, when I had a phone thing a while back with somebody, I did score quite highly on some of that. So yeah, a little bit of it, and I can kind of relate to that, of where things are being disordered or not how you remember, and how that is unsettling. And how you can very easily be thrown off because of that, and that makes you more sensitive to things in your environment. So yeah, I totally get that.
The scariest thing in this movie is when they go back to Jill's place. Jill invites Julia to come stay with her. The giant green penis vase that's in the background.
Oh my
Speaking
word.
of male gaze, it's gazing back at us with a big old honk penis. I just wanted to shove some flowers in it like I do with my own. But anyway, so Jill, tells Julia like, hey, we're going to have another person with a J name enter this picture named John, and then Jake and Jordan and Julie and Bad Mama Jahamba from She's All That comes in. I just wanted to reference that movie for literally no reason. I actually hate that movie. Sorry.
Your legacy's in jeopardy here. I mean, 1 second, you're Zach Seiler, class president, standout athlete, all-around badass Mama Jahamba. The next thing you know, you're Zach Seiler, bitch boy.
So, at the bus station, we get what I think is not acting at all. Charles Durning gets off the bus, and the way freaking Carol Kane runs up to him, I feel like she totally broke character there. She's so excited to see it.
Absolutely. No, I didn't do a direct comparison, because I think you can do that on IMDb, can't you, where you see how many times people have worked together. I gathered from their interview they'd worked together quite a few times, and it does see she's just like kind of, just so like, just ridiculously happy to see him, and almost like expecting she's going to like bring Julia into like a group hug.
That's what I thought was going to happen.
That's what it seemed like was lining up, but then it's like, oh, maybe, not kind of appropriate straight away.
And see, that's what struck me about this movie when I was a teenager, because this, I haven't seen this since it debuted on VHS.
Right.
And it struck me that there's moments where Carol Kane and Charles Durning are not acting. They're just, they're just like hanging out. It's so good. They start theorizing about what happened.
Yeah.
To Jill, and her story, to Julia, and her story is just so strange and impossible. Like how could this have been one person terrorizing her? Because he's here, he's there, he's everywhere. So they're thinking it's two men.
And I think he says, doesn't he? Sorry, that John does, that he kind of hopes it is two people, because I don't know whether I got the direct quote, but if it is one person, he's kind of got something going on that we can't even begin to sort of, fully comprehend, which is...
That's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Later in the movie. Something I also couldn't comprehend. This is great. So Jill wants to stay in her apartment, which is a terrible idea. She's been keeping a diary, and she is writing in it. She falls asleep, and I don't want to get too bogged down in the plot here, folks. There's an incident where she thinks she sees the stranger at her window.
Yeah.
And so she checks her entire apartment. There's nothing there. And she stays on the phone with Carol Kane while she does this. The next morning, however, when she wakes up, the window's wide open.
Yeah.
She locked it.
It's startling when it happens, as you imagine it would be, for you to have that happen.
Now, something about the diary was very interesting here. The diary will be important later, but what was going on with the diary the first time, where she let Jill read her diary entry after the window incident, and Carol Kane reads the diary, closes it, and says, "Julia, do you own a gun?" And I thought that the killer had written something in the diary, but they never reference it again, and I don't know what Jill was supposed to be reading in there.
Well, I mean, there's a few unanswered questions in this, which I think kind of add to its sort of creepiness and its power. And one of them is, jumping ahead, where she ends up is saying, Julia, has shot herself. I don't think it's ever really answered of whether, I don't know, the guy's got it and she's done it in a panic, whether she's just in it out of desperation. Maybe he's even kind of, tried to fake a suicide, what the heck's gone on there. But I hadn't thought about it, but the way those two things sit next to each other with the diary and her suggesting that, it is suggestive of maybe there's something in there that kind of relates to it.
No, it's really good. The ambiguity is really great in this movie. So Julia agrees to stay at Jill's place for the time being. Jack and Jill go visit the hill. They go to the house where the first incident here took place, and they start doing more theorizing. A cop shows up and he reports to them that Julia has frickin' shot herself, but she was in her own apartment. She actually went back for some reason, and using the gun that she bought, or that Jill bought her, she appears to have shot herself. Oh my God, I almost forgot an important scene. Oh my gosh. Tell me about the cafe sequence before Julia shoots herself, where she talks about running away to John.
I mean, there's kind of a something that kind of echoes this earlier, I suppose not second meeting, but extension of the first meeting that Julia and Jill have, where she first goes back to. I'm getting so fucking confused with these names at this point. But they go to Carol Kane's apartment. And this, again, is one of these things which I really love about this movie that makes it resonate with me. How, people who've been through things that are kind of, quote, traumatic, in various ways. It does seem, one good thing about that is it does seem to make you more empathetic towards other people and better able to, potentially support them if similar things come up. And that is, a big part of the heart of this film. But later on, kind of echoing that, but sort of different and almost not like an inverse to it, because they have very different sort of MOs in terms of how they're going to try and support Julia through this. Because she's like really pouring her heart out to John and saying just this great bit where, saying, kind of paraphrasing just the end of it, basically I'll hope wake up tomorrow and be somebody different, somebody with a life and this and that and the rest of it. And she kind of asks for advice, and should I run away? Should I do this? And he just looks at her kind of, I can't quite sum up the look on his face, but just sort of kind of sad, I suppose. But yeah, I can't quite sum it up. There's so much going on in his face, but he just says, I can't, but it's an honest response. I can't make that decision for you. Whereas I think if she'd asked Jill, she might have given her a totally different response. Maybe she would have given her an either or. But I just kind of find that really interesting. But yeah, just a great, this film has just so many great acting and dramatic bits, and that's a case in point. And there's a lovely bit on Joel Jolin's interview where she's talking about working with him, and like you said before, so just glowing things about him, and says, after they were working, he said to her, "You're the finest young actress I've ever worked with," and she's just like, she was just so pulled over. She's like, "I don't know if I said thank you."
That's amazing.
From this kind of legendary actor, but yeah, it's a great scene.
Yeah, I like how lined up behind him in this cafe is all of the frickin' different varieties of chronic. No, I think it's supposed to be coffee.
Right.
But it sort of also looks like pipe tobacco.
Well, if it was made now, would it be like a coffee shop stroke dispensary they were hanging out in? Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's too brown. It's probably all freaking dried out, dude. Whatever. Something bong o'clock. I don't know. I really, really, really love that scene. That's so good. Yeah. Nice. So after she shoots herself, we get the amazing scene where, because John, he's trying to keep an open mind, and it's nagging at him that maybe this is all in Julia's mind. Yeah. He's not made a decision, but he's worried. But when he goes back to the apartment and he's looking through her stuff and where all this horrible incident taking place of her shooting herself, quote unquote, he notices the key thing that tells him that he believes her story, that her alarm clock, which is, one of the things the stranger's been messing with, is her alarm clock. He notices that an hour is missing. So there really was a time where her lights had been out. And that's when she wrote in her diary, like, "It's dark here. Jill, where are you?" It's very, very creepy when you see that just that little detail confirms everything for him. I love that. And then the scariest shit in the movie for me, the hospital scene.
Oh, God, yeah.
So Julia's in the hospital bed, all bandaged up, because she's survived the shooting somehow. And frickin' Jill comes to see her. But before she gets there, the stranger is in the room. Yeah. He just emerges out of the darkness and then disappears right before Jill comes in. And Jill's comforting her and leaves her with this handkerchief, like, that she's clutching. She leaves it in Julia's hand. And when she leaves, the killer comes out and starts testing. He's like an evil child, because he can't really believe that she's comatose. So he starts smacking her stomach to get a reaction, and all she does is like an automatic response of pain, and it's just so scary, her being in there with him. Oh my God. Woo! I don't like it.
No, and I don't know whether you heard about the original ending of the film. It could have been like so much worse as well.
Oh my God, no. Well, let's save that for when we get to the trivia portion, please. I'm very interested. I have no clue.
Recently, an object was sighted.
It was big. Bigger than big.
Huge, large, astronomically big.
Big would be an understatement.
Very big. Huge.
Some guy. Big. Huge.
When it arrives, you better not be alone. Bigfoot.
Pizza Hut.
From Pizza Hut. 2 square feet of pizza. 21 slices on a tasty new crust. $10.99 for up to 3 toppings. It's bigger than pizza. Bigfoot from Pizza Hut. A legendary value.
Because of this show of emotion, and that the stranger witnessed, now he's after Jill. He wants to when a stranger calls back her now, which is probably unwise, since becoming this counselor, Jill also teaches self-defense. And apparently she's a fucking kung fu master, which we'll talk about later.
Oh, it's so good. She has a great line as well where she says, "You can't tell me you don't believe in violence unless you don't believe in living."
Nice. Yes. It's like that frickin' Jane's Addiction song where he goes, "Sex is violent, coming down the mountain, been caught stealing once when I was 5. Folks, I'm losing it, but I'm losing it for you.
Oh, they might have been filming that music video in another aisle of the supermarket while they were
the supermarket where Jill gets stalked by the guy. They're just filming been caught stealing. Good call. There you go. Anyway, John figures out that this guy must be a ventriloquist because, he tracks down the ventriloquist. He goes to the boobs bar. This is a scene that I would like you to tell me all about, Simon. So he knows he's looking for a ventriloquist, so he goes to the one place where people are still want to see a ventriloquist act. Where is this?
Well, firstly, the setup of this is like very interesting to me because I think we see the kind of exterior of it and we see these very kind of classy people going in. You think they've just been out to the opera and maybe they have a sort of class and trash night. Maybe they've been there and now they're wanting to kind of, balance things out culturally speaking.
Sure.
Fancy lady in there. And that seems to me a very more like, you see it all the time in like Jess Franco movies, don't you? Where was that a thing people did in Europe in the 70s? They just go out on dates to strip clubs. Apparently.
Apparently.
And so they go in, and I think very quickly we see, like you say, he's all blacked up, but not for, just to, and he has that little moment with the person running the spotlight of like, can you just, hold it, not move it, because he just wants to be invisible. And I've got to know about this dummy. Oh boy, Boards of Canada want their dummy back.
So yes, his ventriloquist dummy has no face, and he's all blacked out, so you can't see him on stage. It's just the spotlight on the dummy. It ain't right. It ain't right.
It's such a great image. It's like when I think of like images that I know it's kind of maybe kind of sort of obscure movie, but images to me that from it now in my mind are kind of like iconic. Is that like dummy with no face? It's brilliant.
Totally.
Oh, and his whole monologue of I think at first he's like, because he does this whole thing about illusion, and he says it a couple of times, doesn't he? I think just before he gets booted off the stage, you people are the real illusionists. But before that, he's talking about the fancy lady and all her makeup and her persona she's put on, and it's really getting under her skin. She doesn't like it at all and soon leaves.
Yeah.
And all the frat boys, bros, whatever, are just kind of like laughing at it. And then he just throws a total sick bird at them and says, "The mirror that you see is the one at the toilet bowl after a toga party."
And they all look at each other like, wait, what's a toga party?
It was probably a bit, what is that, more like an 80s thing, I guess?
Yep, definitely an 80s thing. So yes, he bombs real bad on his big act, and the actor who runs the club is an actor named Duncan Fraser, and he's been watching this whole time, and he just bursts out and is like, "What the fuck?" and like just grabs him and pulls him off of the frickin' stage. But this actor is Duncan Fraser. 118 credits.
He did look familiar. I can't place him.
Oh my God. Is in so much stuff. Just like ridiculous amounts of movies. He's always like that guy. Like he plays a coach. He plays the mayor. He plays the police chief.
He's Irish cop in Time Cop.
Oh my gosh. He's the Irish Time Cop. God bless him.
That's a movie I want to see.
Yeah, it's crazy. He was in X-Files. Yeah, look at that. Same year.
Did you get this vibe at all? Because I suppose the X-Files did start in 93, didn't it? Especially in again, we'll come to the aspect ratio thing. You watch it. I suppose you watch it in either version because, and this comes to part of my theory. I'll get into theories or whatever later about the, what aspect ratio is meant to be because, the X-Files obviously like this broadcast in 4:3. But now you watch it on streaming, whatever, or even the Blu-rays. They're all widescreen, and it seems. And I wonder if this happened with this because they shot all those again in this kind of open matte 4:3. But they said even then they kind of knew widescreen TVs were coming, so they'd sort of not necessarily composed, but they anticipated it would go widescreen. So
sure.
I don't know, but anyway, I mention all that because some of this got a bit of an X-Files vibe at times, kind of a Monster of the Week sort of thing, and maybe in a couple of shots he's got a bit of the stranger. He's got a bit of a Eugene Toombs thing going on almost.
Oh yeah, good call. That Leetta referenced that too.
Excellent.
While we were watching that. Yeah. I love the topless waitresses. They're so funny. The one lady's clearly a bodybuilder. She is ripped. It's crazy. So right when he gets booted off stage, which is really funny, for some reason, the club owner throws him into the one place you would never throw the weirdest person you've ever seen. He throws him into the changing room with all of the stripper ladies, which is so weird. Meanwhile, John has shown up because he just got that tip that this there's a weirdo guy who's a ventriloquist is performing that night. So he's hanging out. But backstage with these ladies changing, there's this weird, very young looking stripper in a bathrobe telling Mr. Landis that she likes his act.
Yeah.
And he hands her the dummy and he tells her it's not an act. There is no act.
Yeah.
Does she remind you of, because it did with me, she reminded me of young Carol Kane a little bit.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Yeah.
So I felt like a weird connection between the 1979 film and this one with that. Character.
I can totally see that.
I like that. But yeah, he's just there in blackface, and it's so weird. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. And of course, John is obviously hunting this guy. So when the dude gets thrown out into the alleyway, he knows somebody's there. He knows something's up. And sure enough, John comes around the corner, and he's just as convincing as he was in the original film. Like, hey man, I'm not here to murder you. I'm not here to kill you. I just want to talk. I love. He's still so intimidating. Charles Durning is fucking scary. Oh my god! You just know he's got a stiletto laced with poison. And of course he loses sight of him because our pal Landis he's a freaking illusionist, as we'll discover. He goes back to Landis's apartment, and the creepy lady there tells him that the children died. He was looking for the mother of these two children, but the children died. And he asks the lady, did he find her? And she's like, I think so.
Oh, I love that moment where the last time I watched it, I kind of had not epiphany, but just kind of a bit of a, sort of set me wondering, just how her kind of eyes widen. A kind of weird response to that.
Yeah.
Now, two things, firstly, and I'd thought this before of has he got Julia, both. I'm just going to go up now. Confused and thinks she really is the mother. Or is this just some bullshit that he's kind of thrown out there? And also, speaking of mothers, do you think, I've thought on a first viewing it's just his creepy landlady, but I'm wondering now, is that maybe the stranger's mother?
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if they were talking about him, killing the mother of those two children as well.
Oh God, yeah. Well,
because when they go to the house is sold.
Mm.
So they don't really talk about what happened to that family.
No.
Something weird. I love it. And he starts searching Landis's apartment. Meanwhile, while he's doing that, of course, Jill's gotten home and shit ain't right at her place. And she finds a carton of milk with the two missing children on it.
That
reveal. She's like, oh, that was good.
It's so good. I think it's just a simple camera pan or something to show that appears. And I'm trying to, was that another instance of it wasn't there one moment and then it did appear once you look round, was it?
Exactly. So she grabs her gun and she's like, there's someone in this apartment. Meanwhile, so we've established again between the first film and this one, there's a little bit of pathos for the killer.
Yeah.
All that shit's thrown out the fucking window when he starts going through the trash can. John starts going through Landis's trash can, finds pictures of Julia in the hospital, comatose, Polaroids of that, and then her shirt's lifted up and we see breasts, and it's like, oh, this guy he's not some oh, poor guy, he's a sicko, and he's like, because in the first movie, the electroshock therapy literally, I think, made the killer forget what he'd done.
Yeah.
And this guy doesn't have any of that shit. He's just totally crazy. So any sympathy that we have is totally lost, and he realizes that he's after Jill, so he's on his way to save Jill. Let's talk about this climax of the movie, Simon, because, man, this shit is awesome and also riotously funny to me.
Oh, God, yeah.
Speaking of Addams Family values.
I mean, it's kind of set up, I suppose, is that in the scene before where he's looking at the Polaroids and he's found photos of Jill's wall like a very
Yes.
specific part of it and like several angles and, very high detail, and you're like, what's going on here? And that, I think it soon clicks. I don't know whether he'd seen him at that point in the, or he'd been told that this guy had all been dressed in black or whatever, and he'd cooked.
Because he finds his paint, his makeup stash, which is
of
every
course,
color of
yes.
the rainbow.
Of course.
So
yeah,
setting
there you
up
go.
this
Yeah.
insane gag.
And just after you mentioned it before, the reveal of when Jill gets back to her apartment, and that I think that's really the moment, isn't it? The first big one where you see the in the corner of the frame that milk carton appear, and is it after then he's doing his ventriloquist thing and echoing his voice all over the place.
Yeah.
And just jumping ahead, where shit does start going down, after you've had that great reveal of him, obviously, and again, that feels like it could have been a moment right out of the X-Files where he's, in the wall and opens his eyes.
Yeah, painted exactly. Every detail of the wall has been accounted for. Even the scale of how he should paint himself is accounted for, which just made me think of Wednesday Addams, painted to look like the wallpaper in Addams Family Values.
Oh, right.
It's like, LOL.
I wondered because there was, as a movie come to, and I don't know if you've seen this, was definitely an influence on the that kind of inspired that. So whether that was like an idea that was just kind of in the ether around then to do that sort of thing, I don't know. But it's like, on one level, it's so ridiculous, but it's just, it is super creepy at the same time, and kind of get to the kung fu fighting climax not long after, which is just so sort of, after he sort of leaps out and,
in his thong underwear.
Oh, yes. Perfect.
And his thong Speedo. God bless us all.
Oh my God.
But yeah, so she uses her techniques to like flip him and then elbow him and stuff. And then she full on roundhouse kicks this motherfucker in the face after he grabs her and she drops the gun.
Yeah,
that roundhouse kick. I mean, obviously that was not Carol Kane doing that.
It's amazing. Is it even like a flying one or something? I can't quite remember. It's such a kind of fuck yeah moment.
Dude.
But just before that, one bit that is really creepy though is where he's like got his thumbs out like he's gonna
gouge your eyes out.
Yeah. And I'm not sure whether there was something lost in the editing there, because it seems like she stops him from getting anywhere near, but then when she's up and before she kicks the shit out of him, she looks like she's got blood like round her eyes. So maybe,
but it's like the natural. Sorry, it's like the natural extension of his psychology, where he doesn't want anyone to see him.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's going to gouge her fucking eyes out. Oh, shit.
I hadn't even really made that connection, but yeah, no, I think you're right. And he says, sort of echoing what Julia had written in a notebook, saying, oh, it's dark now,
Oh, man.
So creepy.
Yeah, him was reading that last diary entry. Oh, it's so good. Charles Durning kicks down the door. I don't think there's a door in this world that could hold him. He's like a freaking freight train coming at you. And, of course, our son of a bitch has gotten hold of the gun and shoots Julia with her own gun, and then tries to sneaky hide from John, but that doesn't going to work because John knows where he is. So he just starts shooting the wall until he hits him, which I loved. And we didn't get a fake out. We didn't have the killer go, whoa! We had it's just over. And in the hospital, Jill's waking up, and sure enough, John has pulled some strings so she can recover in the room with Julia, who is now awakened from her coma, looking a little worse for wear. Hopefully the hospital will give her a haircut, get her back to her cute little pixie cut she had at the beginning of the movie. And that's it. That's freaking When a Stranger Calls You a Bastard. So before we jump into trivia, I find this very interesting that not only was the director and writer and some of the cast back, we got the frickin' the composer and the cinematographer back.
Right.
From the original film. The composer is Dana Kaproff, and I could find the music from online. Somebody posted the record of the soundtrack of the original 1979 When a Stranger Calls. Couldn't find the score for When a Stranger Calls Back, which is frustrating, Simon, because I do not remember any music in this movie.
Some of it's very, like, I love how it's used in the opening. It's very subtle and almost like more ambient and atmospheric. You know, like the first time I think she, tells a bit of a fib about the phone or whatever, or maybe it's when she clocks there's no, the phone's dead or whatever. It's just like a kind of bit of a wash or like, I don't know, like a synth pad or something. Just very subtle and, like, say, atmospheric, but just insidiously unsettling and just perfect. Yeah. So cool. I remember the bit because I just heard it that many times when I finished the film a couple of times, where the menu looping over this very again probably all like synth or keyboard with this like creepy little melody. I can't quite think how to describe, but yeah, it's not like over the top or anything particularly showy. It's just all perfect for the type of film this is, really.
Nice. Oh, he did. Yeah. So he did the music for, I Saw What You Did, the 1988 one. Oh shit. Speaking of Dolly Parton, he did the music for A Smoky Mountain Christmas from 1986. Wow. Which, folks, if you haven't added that nightmare to your Christmas rotation, you should absolutely watch it. Dolly Parton is amazing as always, but the rest of the movie surrounding her is completely hideous. It's awesome.
Oh, sorry, was that, or I'm getting confused now. Was that just because the thumbnail looks different? Chiller, was that the one that the West Coast said Joel Sholin was in? Because he did the music for that apparently as well.
Totally did the music for Chiller. That's freaking awesome.
She was looking for something the big city couldn't give her.
Cookies.
What she found were 7 orphans who filled her life with holiday magic.
We want you to be our mama.
Dolly Parton, Lee Majors.
Dreaming of a Smoky Mountain.
A Smoky Mountain Christmas next.
Cinematographer is David Geddes, who did a great job with this movie. Whatever aspect ratio you're supposed to watch it in. Which is something that Simon and I have talked about at length, but I'll let Simon run with that in a minute. But this cinematographer, his career is very interesting. He went from shooting some stuff in the 70s.
Oh my God. Sorry. You probably come to this. I'm gonna wait until you find it. Something else that we talked about off air before that he was the DOP for. I'm gonna let you find it though.
Sure. I thought he had shot. I mistakenly thought he'd shot the original When a Stranger Calls. That is not. He did not shoot that.
Right. Okay.
But he worked through TV for many, many years, and then recently though he'd shot Tucker and Dale versus Evil, which is amazing. What is the thing that he shot that we were talking about?
2002. You found it.
Holy shit. This motherfucker shot Halloween Resurrection. Woo! Folks at home, I'm wearing my Dangertainment shirt right now.
Hell yeah.
Oh my God, trick or treat motherfucker. He was the one who said that line. He dubbed Busta Rhymes' voice the whole movie.
This is funny to me as well. Because before I noticed the movie, it listed before that as Halloween Resurrection webcam special.
Yes.
Well, that is listed as a 4.0 on IMDb, which is a 0.1 rated higher than the actual movie.
Yep. I think they took the webcam stuff and made it its own thing, separate.
Okay.
And I actually read a comment where somebody was like, "Ooh, that's better than the movie." Sure. That's freaking hilarious.
It's a sign, I'm telling you.
I mean, so the producers did produce the original film. A couple of them worked on Pandemonium. Speaking of Carol Kane, folks, Pandemonium, 1982. One of the dumbest horror comedies ever made, with Candy and Randy and Bambi. Oh my God, yes. And Sandy. I love Pandemonium. Have you seen that one, Simon?
I had to think, because which of those? I know I've seen Student Bodies. I don't think I've seen Pandemonium. I don't think I have.
And hey, I know people who love Student Bodies. I definitely prefer this one over that.
Cool.
It's quite silly. It's very, very silly. Carol Kane, of course, is she's the Carrie of the movie with her psychic powers, and the overbearing mother, which is awesome.
Brilliant.
Yep. So yeah, what about trivia? What were you saying about the original ending? That sounded kind of dark.
Oh,
you said.
So Fred Walton, bless him, he really hates the ending of this. I don't know what you think about it.
I'm fine with it. Yeah.
I mean, it's, it's refreshing in a way how, and maybe it's kind of a bit of a TV movie thing to do in, your limited time, to have quite a simple, short, straight to the point wrap up. No fuss, no muss sort of thing. I get it. What he's saying is kind of ridiculous, and it's maybe a bit, I wouldn't say schmaltzy, because nothing's even said. There's just a look exchange, which I think is kind of perfect. Again, going back to what I was saying about, the relationship these two have, and that kind of shared generational, like shared trauma thing they've got going on, and how that's going to continue through the, the healing process. But I said in the look, so it's got kind of a nice sort of like visual economy to it, just having them together in that shot, even if it is ridiculous, so that would never happen. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't, I don't know, but that's besides the point. But anyway, he's apparently not out Fred Walton roles. He really wanted to kind of go super dark and have, he didn't say any specifics, but Julie was essentially killed in the hospital by the stranger when he visited.
Gotcha.
Sort of going off that, he talks about a proposed threequel, which I think they developed in Miramax, and there was maybe even a script, but never came to fruition, because he didn't want it to turn into like, an endless sequel sort of thing. But they had an idea, which I'd be intrigued to know what it was, to set it up and have Carol Kane, Charles Durning coming back. But having Carol Kane's character killed off, I don't know, in the course of whatever she was, I think it was going to be more focused back on her. Maybe it was going to round out kind of a trilogy. And Charles Durning was meant to die at the end as well, but of a heart attack, just kind of incidentally. So it's like, I thought this is kind of like really dark, but maybe again that's just how he rolls. That's just the sort of thing that appeals to him.
See, I thought that Charles Durning character was going to get killed in the process of saving Julia. Mm-hmm. That's what I thought was coming. But this totally does. I think it defies expectations. I think the happier ending is actually, you don't expect that.
No, not at all. But I'm glad they went that way, because and there is some kind of redemption. It's not the right word, but good sort of prevails or whatever. I can't think of a better way of putting it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Just after all the shit they've been through, basically. In that interview, he mentions, I don't know whether you saw this, the painted, camouflage painting was apparently an influence. So I watched this interview twice. I've just got the first name here, Veruschka. Got to look forward to my other notes. German model Veruschka von Lindorf, who did all these full body makeups, and it was like a coffee table book. Collaboration with a photographer doing loads of these things, and they're very, very impressive, including one where she's like in like a desert landscape and the top of it's blending with the sky, and just crazy amount of work to do that. Just a few other things about the development of it, saying they were trying to set it up with Fox, but they passed because of Carol Kane not being a star. Then Universal set it up at Showtime. Now, I guess, as good a time as any to talk about the whole aspect ratio thing.
Yeah, please get into that.
I haven't been able to find a definitive answer on it. You would suspect, because it was set up at Showtime. It says Universal, but I think that's one of their TV subsidiaries or whatever. So you'd think it would make sense that they probably did compose it for this 4:3 aspect ratio. Maybe that is, the intended one. I don't know. There was some talk on that. I think I mentioned to you that Mondo Digital review. I don't know what his source was of suggesting it may have been intended for a theatrical release. I've not been able to find anything else about that. Either way you watch it, it works. In the widescreen, obviously that makes it more cinematic. You watch in the 4:3, that gives it more of a TV feel. Maybe it makes it more claustrophobic in the widescreen because of, the losing some of the top and the bottom, but in the 4:3, sometimes those long shots, like in they're in their apartments, so just in the middle of the frame, it makes them look more exposed. So you kind of you sort of, it works either way. I think
totally
maybe I prefer the sort of widescreen look of it, but I don't know, but I think I could go back and forth.
That's what I went for too. So it's definitely a whatever, pick your poison, whatever you're feeling. I went for the widescreen.
Yeah.
I was very, very satisfied with the way it looked. So.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. And it does look, some of the shots, they do look like it could very well have been composed for that. But again, it really is anybody's guess, unless the director or the cinematographer turn around and tell us.
There's some cool trivia. I'm not going to go through all of it on IMDb. Some of it's very silly. Like Jill Schoelen says that When a Stranger Calls was her favorite horror film. Like, that's cool. Yeah. I do love every time I've seen Jill Schoelen. She seems to show up for every interview, no matter what film it is. And she's just she doesn't age She looks exactly the same. Carol Kane looks exactly the same too. It's hilarious. She just shows up and just talks so lovingly about everyone that she worked with, and she talks about the experience of making the movie. Cutting class, she had nice things to say about that too, which, you know, you'd think she'd be like, meh.
Yeah, no, it really warms my heart, that, because like Fred Walton, again, you know, God love him, he is not as, whether he even saw it, I don't know, or he just dismissed it, because apparently his brother-in-law had cast Cutting Class, which is one of the things that led, I suppose, to Jill Schoelen being involved in this. And he, according to her interview, had apparently initially turned her down for an audition, thinking you know, she wasn't right, but then she came in, you know, no makeup, you know, very sort of plain look, and just sort of, you know, bowled him over.
Nailed it.
Really lovely to see. She is exactly as kind of lovely as you would, you know, hope she is. And yeah, her interview's great. And there's a moment that really gets me where, you know, she's talking again about, she does seem very, you know, empathetic about, you know, the sort of thematic stuff, which again, like I say, really sort of resonates with me. You know, trauma and specifically, you know, how hard it can be to heal from things that happen to you, you know. So,
Totally.
Yeah, no, she's great.
So, Simon, I know you hated this film. Why don't you just go ahead and get it over with and tell the people how much you hated this movie?
Yeah, about to go and cancel it on Twitter for being #problematic or what have you.
You're too woke, bro. You're too woke, bro.
Too woke. We've completely scathing review and then #not me too. Or, you know.
I think that would be the end of the show if we did that.
I think
that
you're right. I'll
over.
try not to do that, but no.
Actual career suicide when we don't make any money off of this. Great.
Oh dear, but no. Obviously, yeah, the complete opposite of this. No, I've seen this I think 3 times now, and yeah, no, I absolutely love it. It was a few years before I remembered I actually had this, and I think. Did I watch it? So I watched it last year when I think I saw it with Jill Schoelen's 60th birthday. And,
nice.
You know, me and my dates and stuff, just because, I mean, the main reason I do it is often because there's so much stuff to watch and I get really stuck trying to figure it out. So it gives me ideas, you know, and I'm always happy to watch anything with her. And so, you know, it just seemed a no-brainer to and yeah, just one of those movies just came about for me at the right time, really, I suppose. You know, without sort of banging on about it too much, just again, all the thematic stuff, which just really resonated with me. I could do to rewatch the original again, but I think even all that stuff aside, this is probably more. And again, like I said earlier, I love how tangential and kind of weirdly structured it is. That kind of makes it interesting. But this, you know, is unarguably, I think, more kind of cohesive and maybe stronger overall as a film as a result.
I said in my notes that this is different than the first movie, also better. I always bristle a little bit when people complain about the original film. And this does improve on that, you know, with having scarier stuff happening in general.
Yeah.
And then having the stuff not like in the original film, there's a little bit of scary at the end. This has scary throughout, has menace throughout.
Yeah.
You know, and I think they wisely spend less time with the stranger.
Yes.
That being said, I had to like grab the remote when we finally meet the stranger and we finally see him in his own habitat and we're at this crazy bar. I grabbed the remote and hit display to see how much time was left. And I was shocked to find out there was only 20 minutes left of the movie.
Really? Oh, right.
I was like, this feels like they're setting up the next 40 minutes of the movie, the next hour of the movie. It's so crazy. But yeah, they wisely kept things short, I think. You know, the movie's only 93 minutes. I would not have blinked if this had been an hour and 45.
No.
I used to be of the mind I always want shorter and shorter horror movies. And then I was in a long movie period, you know, our new Suspiria period, where, you know, the new Suspiria is 3 hours. Let's do it, you know. And now I'm kind of like coming back to the shorter films, you know, because, I mean, I'm on my last legs here as a human being. So let's pick it up, guys. I ain't got much time here. I feel like crap. But anyway, I love how unglamorous Jill Schoelen is. She's so cute and teenage girl at the beginning. And then when we see her trauma embodied. I know I'm making jokes about her haircut, but It's body language and her outfit. It's very, very bulky.
Yeah.
Very, early 90s.
Oh, totally.
The only thing I wanted was I just wanted her to put on some grunge albums. That would have been great. Just rocking some Soundgarden. But yeah, this is a strange movie. It's very odd. The original too is very odd. But this feels like a labor of love. And that's what I think is a common theme from that original short film through the original When a Stranger Calls, and definitely in this movie. This is a labor of love.
Totally.
When you get so many people back to do something that they care about. It's kind of like how the 4 prom night movies, maybe not the fourth one as much, and definitely not the remake. The first 3 prom night movies just feel so genuine. Like people really cared. Like it's just like the third prom night movie even takes place at the same high school.
I really need to pull my finger out and watch that. I can't believe I haven't already.
Oh, dude, you're in for a treat.
Fantastic.
It's crazy. It's completely crazy. Just like the second one's totally off the wall.
Yeah.
But the tension in this is palpable from the very beginning and maintains that tension throughout. And I'm shocked that they wanted to go darker by having Julia not survive in the hospital or kill off Jill. It's very interesting to me. I kind of wish they'd shot that. I've watched the shit out of that version, It
would have been curious to see how it would have played. And I mean, I'm not really surprised, but again, obviously I think Showtime or whoever which is interesting because that links to, that was the thing I forgot to mention that I had in my notes. I was like, why is this living room, where she's babysitting, why is it giving me the creeps so much? And then I realized it reminded me really of the Palmer's house from Twin Peaks.
Dude, good call.
Yeah.
Good call.
Especially the living room. And yeah, obviously that. And there was some stuff that came up recently. There was some debate about this, of whether, with the reveal scene in that, again, in the nightmarish looking living room, whether he kind of snuck that past the executives, whether nobody signed off on it, and there was all this arguing. I didn't really dive into it. But anyway, the point being, this is like 2 years after that, and, the television landscapes had this kind of, fucking earthquake kind of hit it, that they maybe, especially on, because this is premium cable as well, whether they could have...
Yeah, Showtime,
could have got away with it. And obviously Showtime later, bring in Twin Peaks TNG. So,
good call.
Yeah.
I had thought of that. But cool. We did it. Before I let you escape, I ask you to talk about a recently seen and loved. This could be a film from any genre, and it could be an old favorite that you rewatched or something new to you. What do you got there?
Well, my head was kind of swimming a bit after I watched this film last night, which I'm probably going to talk about just to try not overcomplicate it, because there were, I suppose I'm not going to go on about it, but I started thinking, there was like a few honourable mentions maybe from last weekend. I finally watched frickin' Eyes Without a Face and Mill of the Stone, which, my word, that is like a double feature that has to be done someday as well. Both of those I loved. I'm not going to talk about those, so I think I'm going to talk about what I watched last night, which was partly, I've been itching to watch this anyway, and I'd had the Blu-ray nearly a fucking year or something. Links to something I think you're going to talk about, because this was another second run Blu-ray, which I've got here. So I made a pinch for the plot synopsis. Yeah, like the one I believe you're going to talk about, I blind bought this. I blind bought another one as well. These are both cat themed. I'm going to, just leaning to grab this other one. So I got these two at the same time. They're both Czech. I don't know whether New Wave or just, crazy, weird sort of Czech films anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The one I haven't watched is earlier from 1963 called The Cassandra Cat, which just to, whet anybody's appetite and mine as well, even though I read this before, I've just not watched it yet. What's this say? Travelling circus and its magical feline mascot arrive in a provincial Czech town, unleashing mayhem as they expose the virtues, vices and desires of its unruly inhabitants. So yeah, it just sounded kind of interesting. And
wow, no joke.
Yeah, it would tie into this one that I did watch last night. See if I can pronounce this right. Is Morgiana, I think. It's pronounced from 1972 from, and I'm going to butcher all these pronunciations. Sorry, a guy called Juraj Hers. I'm probably saying that wrong. Who he had apparently, this is the first of his films I've seen, is I don't know whether he's more famous for this or the Cremator. But yeah, I'll just read the stuff off the back of this Blu-ray. Hopefully sum it up and maybe say a few things about it. So it says, part fairy tale, part gothic horror, Morgiana is the story of two sisters who live a life of decadent opulence. Where Clara is charming and beautiful, Victoria is wicked, sadistic, bursting with hate and jealousy, and plots to poison her more popular sibling. So, yeah, this is like definitely gothic as fuck. One of the most gothic films I've ever seen, but in the best way.
Wow.
Really, really beautiful to look at. I think I'd seen Severin. This Blu-ray is not that old. It's from last year, I think. But I think I'd seen Severin doing the restoration. So if they put a 4K out, I will buy it because this film looks incredible. It's funny, actually. It tied tangentially to I rewatched The Sitter last night, which I'd forgot was set in 1972. This is from 72, and they're both lovely. What did I coin it to you? I've re-coined the aspect ratio, the A24:3 ratio.
Yes. Oh, that was great. That really got me when you sent me that.
Thank you, sir.
Holy shit. Hey, it's always A24 somewhere. Right? A24 420?
A24
A24 20?
Yeah. Oh my word. But yeah, I think I loved it. I'm not sure. The only thing that gave me slight pause, because there's a lot of animal stuff in this, Morgiana is the name of the evil sisters, the evil twin, Cat. And there's loads of great sort of calling forward to like Fulci's the Black Cat and the Argento one from that Two Evil Eyes. Lots of really great cat cam, like prowling camera and like wide angle lens stuff, which is really, really brilliantly done. And without giving too much away, so the I've not got a name here, but the two sisters are played by the same actress. Something that ties to what probably is my favourite first-time watch of this year, which I might talk about another time. The Tilda Swinton, because it is a very Tilda Swinton thing to do that. Doing Tilda Swinton before Tilda Swinton, played both roles, and it reminded me of this film. Shall I say at the top of my head, it might be my favourite film watched the first time, not just this year, maybe the last couple. A film called, God, I'm saying this, but I'm spacing the title now, The Eternal Daughter, where Tilda Swinton is playing a mother and a daughter, but in both of these you soon forget, it's not just like a bit of like a gimmick. And this especially, if no one had told me, and they didn't do this great thing in the opening credits of repeating the lead actress's name and then playing it again, I would have not realized it was the same actress. It's just incredible how it's done. And basically, as it says in the synopsis here, she's trying to poison her more popular sister, but it's like a slow acting poison that's making her kind of trip out and like hallucinate. See this really funny actually, because there's one scene especially that is Giallo-esque as fuck, black gloves and everything and like POV camera. And one of her hallucinations, because she in this tarot reading that the evil twin has, the good sister is cast as kind of the Queen of Hearts. So she is like, when she's tripping out, the good twin, when she's slowly been poisoned, seeing this Queen of Hearts, so like a Red Queen, which isn't that 72 as well? Red Queen kills 7 queens, which again, the twins, are they twins or just sisters? This was such a great double feature with that. But yeah, I could go on. Yeah, I think I loved it. Just what I was going to say, thing that gives me slight pause is, there is a lot of animal stuff. There's one scene in particular with Cat that made me think of another favourite of yours and mine from 1972, Seven Bloodstained Orchids, where you're like, I hope they only drug that cat, or I hope that it was simulated in some way. Yeah. So just be warned about that. But hopefully it was okay and they didn't do anything they shouldn't be doing. But yeah, man, I think I loved it. Fucking great stuff.
Did you say it gives you pause?
Ooh, I punned myself in the face.
Meouch. So that's awesome, dude. I'm glad you found those. That's really cool. Yeah, I definitely want to see the Cassandra Cat. That looks freaking great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I based on your recommendation, I snatched up the like 9-pound or 10-pound Blu-ray of Goodbye Dragon Inn.
Brilliant. So glad you did.
And I am so glad you gave me heads up about the frickin' long takes, buddy.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Okay, so Goodbye Dragon Inn is about the last screening, the last show at an old theater that's being closed down, and they're showing an old, very famous kung fu film, like one of those sweeping kung fu epics from 1967. and they are showing this movie, and that's it. That's the plot. I don't want to say too much, because believe it or not, there's some spoiler stuff I could get into that is so fun. My issue with the movie is there's a long take in this movie that is so long, I thought my Blu-ray had frozen. And I picked up the remote again to check the display to make sure it was running, and that's when they cut. So that I feel like the director knew exactly when my patience was broken. And there's two moments in the movie that I was actually getting angry at the editor for. Like, it's 82 minutes, so it's not a long movie.
No.
But this is his movie. So, fuck this guy who watched it. Who cares about me? I just really felt in two moments the indulgence hurt the film.
Yeah.
He overindulged the long take thing. You know the scene where the dude's sweeping the bar in Twin Peaks TNG?
Yes.
And he sweeps the bar forever. That is more exciting because at least there's a person in the frame doing something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't remember if the director's from Malaysia or from Taiwan. I forget where he's from, but he definitely was trying to capture the theater experience in this very specific theater because they reminded him of the theaters from his youth. Yeah. And more importantly, the theaters of his dreams, which he dreamt about a lot. Mm-hmm. But it's a very rewarding film. I had some theories about what I thought certain scenes meant.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I started reading the booklet that came with it, and I was spot on one particular thing. I don't want to say to spoil it. But yeah, it's criminally slow movie with long takes, with no score at all. It is all the only music is the music from the film they're watching.
Yeah.
There's no anything. They play a song at the end. I think the song at the end is from the movie. Mm-hmm. But the clever stuff about the movie is wonderful. The meta moments, I don't want to spoil, are amazing. There's some jokes that play and were so funny to me. There's some great humor in it. But yeah, Goodbye Dragon Inn, worth checking out. Just don't watch it tired. And watch it with as much of an open mind as you can. Cause even as much as I enjoyed it, it still pissed me off with the takes. Woo!
Yeah. I get you. I did. And I suppose, like you were, we were sort of primed for it, but still, they're like pushing at the edges of your patience potentially. But I'm trying to think specific. Did it really? I don't know whether it bothered me. And there might have been one or two moments where I might have. I don't know. I'm trying to remember now.
Probably not. You obviously knew that they were long takes.
Yeah.
But I think because of your fandom of like the later Lynch, like his longer and longer and later films and stuff, I think you probably have more patience than me. I wish the movie had a score. Like, I know it's totally against what the director wanted to do, but when I looked at the artwork and I thought about the film and I tried to turn off my expectations, one of the things I expected was it to have music.
Mm-hmm.
Some kind of a theme music that, but there is nothing. Like, I think the most rockin' song is the projector making its clicking sound as the girl is sitting in the production room staring at a steam bun.
No, I'm so glad you picked it up, and I'm excited to rewatch it. And because I've been looking at the, I think Eureka put it out over here, the Blu-ray of Dragon in itself, and he made a bunch of films. I don't know whether that. And that, what do they call them? Is it Wuxia sort of films?
Yeah.
Was, the only ones I've really seen, I think, there was that mini sort of, not really revival, but, where they became quite popular over here with obviously Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and
right.
What's the other one? House of Flying Daggers? Is that it?
That sounds right. Yeah.
I think so, yeah. But no, I'm really intrigued to see that. And there was Touch of Zen as well, I think, which might be the more famous one, because I think that one had kind of like, and again, don't want to give too much away, but it was teased in some of the stuff I read about it in Goodbye Dragon Inn, maybe some ghost story stuff in there discussed.
Right.
you know?
And that's the thing. I'm more likely to watch the supernatural stuff from that era, you know, if it has that in the plot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Simon, it's been way too long
man.
since we had talked. This has been awesome. Thank you, sir.
No, thank you. My pleasure.
We're back at it again, doing it. And folks, thanks for listening to when you did not check the children. You listened to a podcast instead of checking the children.
And they were too busy 420 blazing, A24 blazing it.
A2420. Bye, folks.
Bye.
Folks, thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you'd like to write into the show, send an email to doomedmoviethon@gmail.com or hit us up at doomedmoviethon on Instagram or at doomedmoviethon on Twitter or at doomedmoviethon at Discord, or go to Hello This Is the Doom Show on Facebook and message us there. If you want more Hello This Is the Doom Show, go to doomedmoviethon.com and click the podcast button for the archive, or go to YouTube and look up Doomed Moviethon and you'll find the classic episodes of Hello, This Is the Doomed Show. And if that's still not enough, I have written some books, you know, about my love of movies over on Amazon.com. Just look up Richard Glenn Schmidt and you'll find Giallo Meltdown, a Moviethon Diary, Giallo Meltdown 2, Cinema Somnambulist, or Doomed Moviethon, the book. Hello, This Is the Doom Show is a proud member of the Legion Podcast Network. Go to legionpodcast.com and check out the other great shows over there.